It's our first free agent Friday of the offseason. Let's take a peek at the available defensemen the Dallas Stars should have their eye on this summer. Can they solidify this decor and get over the hump next season?
Your Locked On Stars, your daily podcast on the Dallas Stars, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Howdy, Stars fans, and welcome back to another episode of Locked On Stars, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. It's a pleasure to be with you. I'm Joey Erickson, former producer, 105 Through the Fan. Please be sure to subscribe. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. And as always, thank you so much for making us a part of your day and making us your first listen. Happy Free Agent Friday. And we begin by looking at the top available defensemen in the National Hockey League this summer. I have a few names I'm going to throw out there that I think would be great fits for the Dallas Stars. And I have a few categories as well, and some of them have multiple things in common. Number one is a right shot defenseman because the Dallas Stars desperately need some right shot defensemen. The other is some size as well. I did throw in an undersized defenseman I'll get to a bit later on, as well as some under 30 options for the Dallas Stars, and maybe even some unrealistic options because let's face it, it's fun this time of year to think about who the Dallas Stars could go after, even if the number wouldn't quite fit, or even if they wouldn't be a great fit with the Dallas Stars. But I think defense is priority number one for general manager Jim Nill, and I think it's priority number one for the Dallas Stars. They need to have 6 defensemen, 3 pairs that they can trust and they can play in order to get over the hump next season. So let's dive right in. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. By the way, let me know in the comment section if there's somebody I need to do a deeper dive on or somebody I forgot, because we can revisit this segment each Friday because we have a couple of weeks before July 1st. But without further ado, I begin with a right shot defenseman who played for the Winnipeg Jets last year. 6'1", 194 pounds, and I think a very intriguing and reasonable option in Dylan Demelo. I'm also doing this under the I'm doing this under the umbrella of the Dallas Stars do not re-sign Chris Tanev because, look, that is still a possibility, okay? He could be gone. He's an unrestricted free agent. There could be a lot of suitors for him. I'm also doing it with the assumption that Ryan Suter is staying put, and he'll be a cap hit, $3.6 million, and you don't get Tanev. So the Stars need to try to fill that void. I'm doing it under that assumption because it's a realistic possibility that the Stars are without Chris Tanev next season. But anyways, I go with Dylan Demelo, a 31-year-old defenseman, had a really, really solid season with Winnipeg last year, and he played alongside their best defenseman, and of course Josh Morrissey, who is an offensive genius, has put up some large numbers the past few years, but he plays really, really well amongst talented defensemen, and I think could be a really, really great fit for someone like Miro Heiskanen or even Thomas Harley. He had 28 points. He played in all 82 games last season. He had 31 points, 28 assists. Something I really like about him at the age of 31, the last 4 seasons, his offensive numbers have increased. And look, that probably helps playing alongside a really, really good defenseman in Morrissey, but had 13 points in 21-22. That bumped up to 27, and then it ticked up a bit more with a career high of 31 points here this past season. Had a plus minus, a plus 46. He's a really, really strong defender. He had a defensive net rating of +2, and his offensive rating was +1. You take a look at an article from The Athletic about the top available free agent defenseman, and it says, for those who strike out on Matt Roy of LA or Tanev, Demelo represents a solid younger backup plan, a strong number 2 option who prioritizes defense, is an asset for clear, responsible breakouts. And one of the things I love about this one sentence on this article. It says Demelo's ability to exit zones with control is on par with Tanev. He's the type of guy you pair with a stud and don't think twice about it. I think that is a great, great sign for someone that could fit right in with the Stars, and he gives Dallas a bit of size. I know he isn't huge, but he was third on the team in hits for Winnipeg. He blocked a ton of shots. He led the Jets D-corps in block shots a year ago. He plays on special teams and is really, really good in his own zone. And I think the Stars need some upgrade on the back end with some size. They need some physicality, and they need someone that can make plays in their own zone, specifically on breakouts, making that outlet pass, looking for clear exits. And there's also a few more characteristics that you really have to like about him. Not an overly elite talent, but 54% of the expected goals and 59% of the expected goals the past 2 seasons. And he has some great projections. In this article specifically, they have him around $5 million. And let's say Chris Tanev gets offered a lot more than Dallas is willing to give him, or Matt Roy is another defenseman that looks like he's going to be in the conversation of getting a massive payday. Demelo might be a really, really reasonable option for the Stars. And he gives you some characteristics like a Chris Tanev, and he might come a bit cheaper. And even if he's not a bit cheaper, you get him at a bit younger age. One of the concerns that you could have about Chris Tanev is he's 34 years old. And who knows if his defense is going to decline or his game is going to drop off. I also want to preface, I'm still very much on board about re-signing Chris Tanev. I think the Stars should do whatever they can to get him back and keep him in the building, because he's obviously very, very impressive. But you have to acknowledge the fact that he could walk out the door, because he's going to be a pretty hot commodity. I think a lot of teams will be interested in him, but maybe some of the flair wears off with him, just with the amount of names that are available this year, especially defensively. I think there's a lot of solid choices, not necessarily a number one or I would say like the shining crown, so to speak, like the shining player. I think there's just a lot of solid top pairing or top 4 type of defensemen in this free agent class. And I think that bodes well for Dallas as well. They need to get somebody at a decent value, especially with the assumption that that Suter is going to stick around. And even if Tanev is going to stick around, how can you fit that in? Because you're trying to increase I think your size on the back end, number one, and your just defensive ability, so you can rock with 6 defensemen pretty consistently that you trust, and it's not going to be a liability. Because I think that is one thing that probably faulted them in the Western Conference Final this year. They were rolling with 5 defensemen for really the last month and a half of the season, and then of course Petrovic was inserted into the lineup in Game 6 against Colorado. But all those minutes had already accumulated on Miro, Harley, Tanev, Lindell, even Suter, who had an awful, awful finish in the postseason. Those minutes really, really wore down Dallas, and I don't think they were able to defend at a high enough level, even though they did have an edge at 5-on-5. I'll give them that against Edmonton. But look, you have to be able to defend their best players, and obviously they're 2 of some of the more talented players in the world. And we don't have to dive into that series any more than we already have. But look, I think DeMelo is a really interesting option. And at 31 years old, I think he would be a great, great, solid player you can pair with either Miro or Harley and get a lot out of. I think there's a lot of nice upside with him. still. So I throw out Dylan DeMello as an option for the Dallas Stars this summer. Not the most gifted offensively, but I'm not necessarily looking for guys with a ton of offensive upside. I'm looking for some shutdown defensemen and some size, because I think that is what Dallas needs to elevate them to getting over the hump in the Western Conference Final. And I think is important because, look, we've seen a trend now with Pete DeBoer. Offense is starting to fizzle out deeper you get into the postseason. Well, if your offense is going to dry up, I can see the devil's advocate of, well, you need to get some more offensive talent. Well, if it's going to really dry up, because it becomes a lot harder to score when you're playing better teams, supposedly, well, at least you think, when you get to the final four, final two of a year, offense is a bit harder to come by. You need to be able to defend at a high enough level. So those are sort of the circumstances I'm thinking about when I'm looking at these type of players that the Dallas Stars should keep their eye on. But DeMello will be number one for me. And it was a 6th-round pick, actually, by the Sharks in 2011. I remember a late-round pick for the Sharks that's had an impact on the Stars here over the past few seasons. So maybe he could he could do the same in a Stars uniform. Okay, let's segue into some under 30 options for the Dallas Stars. And I have 2 players for you, and they're kind of different drastically, I would say. Both different kinds of players, but I think could be really, really intriguing if the Stars are, again, looking for a right shot defenseman. I can sort of plug and play in the top 4 and find some success with. So let's look at some under 30 options for the Dallas Stars in just a moment. Today's episode of Locked On Stars is brought to you by Policy Genius. A lot of life is unpredictable, but a good insurance life policy gives your family a financial safety net to protect against some of the unknowns. Policy Genius is the country's leading online insurance marketplace. It makes choosing the right policy for your family easy and quick. With Policy Genius, you can find life insurance policies that start at just $292 per year for $1 million of coverage. Some options are 100% online and let you avoid unnecessary medical exams. Policy Genius helps you easily compare your options from America's top insurers in just a few clicks. Their award-winning agents can even walk you through the process step by step. They have no incentive to recommend one insurer over the other, so you can trust their guidance. They have 1,000 5-star reviews on Google and Trustpilot from customers who found the best fit for their needs. Your needs are going to differ from everybody else's, and that's why Policy Genius helps you find the right life insurance policy. So get peace of mind. Find the right life insurance policy with Policy Genius. Head to policygenius.com or click the link in the description to get your free life insurance quotes and see how much you could save. That's policygenius.com. Okay, these are 2 defensemen that I think I would be really, really over the moon about if the Dallas Stars could grab one of these 2 players. And I begin with this one because if you remember, I did a dive into possible trade deadline options for the Dallas Stars earlier this season, and he actually popped up in one of these, and he ended up staying with his club, but he's had a couple of really, really nice seasons with the Carolina Hurricanes, and he also went through some injuries this year, didn't play in the entirety of the playoffs, but it's Brett Pesce. I don't know what it is. I've always liked his game, and the eye test just really, really does it for me. And he may not be in a range where Dallas can nab him, but at the same time, I really, really like his game, and I think he's so steady, and I think he would be a wonderful, wonderful addition for the Dallas Stars. Pesce and his partner Brady Shea are free agents here in the offseason. 29 years old. He's a bigger cat. He sits at 6'3", over 200 pounds. So you're getting some size on the back end. Not as offensively inclined as Brett Pesce is. Had just 13 points in 70 games this season with Carolina. But he's an intriguing option. His expected goals is just 5.8, which ranked fifth amongst all Hurricanes defenders. But he defends at a really, really high level, especially at 5-on-5. And I think it's just a real high quality defenseman. It says here from The Athletic, Carolina defenders can be very tough to read because it's difficult to know what they'll be capable of a different system. And of course, Carolina plays a very different style than most other teams. As the Hurricanes seem to play an entirely different sport. It's hard to comment on whether Pesce is actually a poor puck mover or if that's by design. He is great at defending the rush and still great defensively in general, enough to be on the ice for 55% of the expected goals last season. His absence during the playoffs was felt greatly. Says that there's a right price to be paid for his services, and they are entirely dependent on term. He's probably a $5 million defenseman now, but how long will that be true as he enters his 30s? There are some risks. They say that short and sweet is ideal, with $5.2 million over 4 years being a sweet spot for Pesce. So one of the things that I really like, he's great at defending off the rush. The Stars were one of the better teams in that category this season, especially the way they defend. And you saw it a ton last year where you have a guy streaking down the right wing, Miro, Harley, whoever it is, will go over, use the boards as an extra defender, try to shut off the lane. The center lane drive, wherever the opponent is picked up by that weak side defenseman. And then, of course, it also involves your forwards tracking back, picking up their options as well. But Pesce for me is just, I don't know, one. He may be the golden eye for me. Just the golden player that's shining that I think would be a really, really interesting fit for Dallas. And who knows, maybe there's a sweet spot for him here in Dallas. But another guy blocks a lot of shots. He blocked 113 this season. That was second best on Carolina. And I think if you put him with a really quality defenseman, he could do wonders for you. So there is, I think, probably the golden boy for me of free agent defensemen. We now switch over to a Central Division rival, and a player that I believe someone commented actually not too long ago, but he doesn't bring a ton of size. This is one of my options where he's an undersized defenseman, but his upside defensively is really, really good. A strong defender, and actually took on the toughest minutes last year for Nashville, and that's Alexandre Carrier. He's really, really young, just not really, really young, but 27 years of age, not great offensively, but he has a +3 defensive rating. His offensive rating was -1. Doesn't apply a ton of offense. He had 20 points last year, but I think really, really strong, and you have to what you see out of him. He's just 5'11", 174 pounds, and he was a name that I heard a ton of, especially this year against Nashville. Felt like his name was called a ton, and for the right reasons. You can get your name called a lot for for wrong reasons throughout a game. But I think Carrier is a really, really, really strong defender. Earned 52% of the goals and expected goals, with some of the best defensive numbers on the team. He's really, really strong in transition, and he creates chances, and he breaks the puck out really, really well. I think he would be a great top 4 option for a ton of teams. I look at his frame, and I know that's not the particular archetype that a lot of teams are looking for in their top four, especially that he's not a highly offensive gifted talent. But I think what you're getting in terms of a defenseman, he's really, really strong. And maybe you have some pushback. Well, we kind of got that in Nils Lundkvist at this point. But let's face it, Nils Lundkvist is not this strong of a defender as Carrier. And do you really want to bring in another undersized defenseman to this operation, which I can see? But I think he is a very, very realistic and reasonable option. I don't know if the Stars would have a ton of interest in him, but you see a lot of guys, especially within divisions, that can kind of hop around just because you see him a ton. And obviously Dallas has seen him quite a bit here in the past few seasons. And he certainly has improved, especially defensively, over the past 3 years. Pesce is not as realistic as an option for Dallas. It looks like Toronto is really in on him. There's a bunch of rumors buzzing in Toronto about him, which makes sense. I think Toronto is going to have buzz almost everybody around everybody. They're going to be looking for anyone with a pulse that they can get in there to make an impact. So there were a couple under 30 options for you: Brett Pesce and Alexandre Carrier. Now let's switch over. Maybe some unrealistic options, possibly some that make absolutely zero sense for Dallas. But let's take a look at some of the top names or just top candidates in the summer this year that I think a lot of teams will have their eye on, because look, it's fun to kind of play fantasy GM, maybe like Vegas does, and just bring everybody in and figure it out later, which is pretty hard to do with the cap the way it is. But the cap is going up, and maybe there's some leeway to make some things happen via trade and who knows, all that other good stuff. Let's do that in just a moment. Today's episode of Locked On Stars is brought to you by Game Time. Game Time takes all the guesswork out of buying tickets. It's also the official app of getting NBA tickets for the NBA Finals. The Dallas Mavericks just took on the Boston Celtics in Game 1 yesterday. I'm currently recording that as that contest is about to start, so I do not know the outcome of that one. But either way, you can get last minute deals with Game Time all the way up to tip off. You can look at the seat before you buy it, so you know exactly what you're getting, and you can save up to 60% off buying your tickets. And not just only for the NBA Finals, hockey games in the near future, theater, concerts, comedy. You want to see someone, go see them and use Game Time. It takes 30 seconds. Download it on your smartphone. It's free on the Apple Store as well as the Google Play Store. Download the app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNHL. That's LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Okay, there are a litter of defensemen in this year's free agent class, and I did want to pop out a few names that may not be realistic options for the Dallas Stars, but who knows? Nothing really is necessarily out of the possibility. Anything can happen in the summer, and who knows? Maybe General Manager Tim Neal will surprise us. One of the bigger names, which I think is really, really intriguing, and of course he got dealt really, really early this season, and that was Nikita Zadorov, 29 years of age, and he played in a very, very interesting role with Vancouver. Wasn't necessarily top four in the playoffs this season, but obviously he's huge. He has a ton of size, and analytics really, really love him. His advanced numbers are pretty glowing. Even though he didn't play in a necessarily great role or the most, I guess, successful role with Vancouver in the postseason. He is someone that could be really, really interesting. And who knows, maybe he is an option for the Stars. And if they got Tanev, reunite Tanev and Zadorov once again, I don't know if he's necessarily someone the Stars would really, really be in love with. But who knows? He could be, I think he's a wild card this summer. I could see teams really shelling out a lot of money for him, or I could see a lot of teams passing up on him, and then maybe someone gets a steal or gets really, really good value. But at 6'6" and almost 250 pounds, he was really, really strong defensively on entries. He defended at or above 50% on entries. His puck moving ability is really, really strong. His exit volume was very high last season, and he did so with control 56% of the time. So he's pretty fleet-footed, which may go against popular belief just with him being such a big guy. But Nikita Zadorov is one I think to keep an eye on this summer, because who knows if teams are really going to shell out the bank for him or not. The other one is Matt Roy, and there have been a couple of pieces on him recently, and I've fallen in love with him, but doesn't seem like chance and you know what that the Stars can get after him, because he's going to get paid at a very nice level. Matt Roy has slotted alongside Drew Doughty, and he's just kind of been under the radar for the majority of his career. He has a really, really interesting story, and before eventually he finds his way to LA, and has put up just some phenomenal defensive numbers for the Kings. He's projected to get $6.4 million this offseason, a +1 offensive rating, +4 defensive rating, 26 points a year ago. He's 29 years old. He hasn't really gotten his payday as of yet, and it's expected to come this summer. So first off, congratulations for him. I hope he does get paid. But he was also the 12th highest mark in the league among defensemen. And get this, he was sandwiched right in between Chris Tanev and Esa Lindell. And it's not like he's a drag offensively as well. So he's going to be a welcomed addition to whoever gets him. I mean, he's a top pairing player immediately, and he's going to get his payday. So he's a name that maybe you haven't even heard a ton of, just because it doesn't really have that headline power, so to speak. And he really should, because he's fantastic, and has done great work with the Kings over the past few seasons, and looks like he's about to cash in for sure. So those are a few maybe unrealistic options for the Dallas Stars, but hey, who knows? Nothing is out of the possibility this time of year. And look, it's always fun to think about all the different players that the Stars could have their eyes on. I will also touch on Chris Tanev for that matter, just because he's on this list, and just give you a little rundown of the Athletic article, what they say. His defensive rating was +4. His offensive rating what was -2. It says Chris Tanev, of course, everybody loves. He was a shutdown defenseman, played the toughest minutes in the playoffs this season. He's heavily involved in retrievals, exits, and highly efficient. Very few retrieve as many pucks as he does, 29.9 per 60. If the term is short, he's definitely worth 4.5 or $5 million. Tanev is perfect, but at 34, there is a risk of his game dropping off at any moment, and that may drive down the price. So there you go. That's a little summary there on Chris Tanev from The Athletic. But like I told you, I am all on board for trying to keep Chris Tanev around. Look, as much as I think the Stars should buy out Ryan Suter, I just don't think it's going to happen. I don't see it happening for a few reasons. Look, they're pretty loyal to him, and they've shown that over the past few seasons. And whether you think that's right or not. And number two, he's just a veteran that's played a ton of games. And it's not like Dallas, as of right now, has a ton of better options. I know Liam Bixel is expected to make the jump, and hopefully he can play every day in the National Hockey League. But look, he's still really young. I know we're ready for him to arrive, but there's questions there. It's not like he's going to step in and just be like, wow, all of a sudden. Who knows? Maybe he is, but maybe there's some Thomas Hartley in that, right? Or you have to kind of bounce back and forth in the American Hockey League till he gets his feet wet, right? So I think he's just going to be an option the Stars are going to keep around for one more year, and then go on their ways after that. So look, whether that's right or wrong, I don't think it's a real option. And I think he'll be sticking around for another year, and Dallas is just going to have to find a way to fill holes where they need, and make it where Ryan Suter doesn't have to play tough minutes. And he's not playing in big, important moments of the season where he has a track record now in the past few years that's really, really, really hurt the Stars in key moments. And you saw that this year against Edmonton, and you definitely saw it against Vegas a season ago. Alrighty, that wraps up our first Free Agent Friday of the off season. Probably dive into some forwards next week, some wingers in particular. Looking for size once again. There's some intriguing names as well there that we'll dive into. I am going to be speaking with Sam Nestler next week. I got him on the books as of right now, next Monday. If you have any questions you want me to ask him, does great work and has followed the Stars for years now, and has some great pieces. If you want to go check out some of his work, I know many of you probably already know who he is, but I'll be having a conversation with him next Monday on that episode. So if you have any questions you want to know or know the answer to or want me to ask him, please let me know in the comment section below, and I'll pick out a few and I'll throw it his way as well. Hoping to get some guests here lined up in the next couple weeks. Just get some different perspectives on Dallas, of course, and maybe the draft and all the offseason questions that need to be answered here in the next couple of months. Alrighty, that'll do it for today's episode of Locked On Stars. Thank you once again. All the love and support. Please be sure to like, comment, subscribe, hit that notification bell. Never miss an episode. We're going to be here for you all off season long, delivering content and having fun as well. All right. Enjoy your weekend. Enjoy the sun, hopefully. And we'll see you next week. So long, Stars fans.